Welcome to Inside Analog Photo. I'm your host, Scott Shepard. The Inside Analog Photo radio program is all about the traditional photographic process. We talk about all aspects of analog photography, including the hybrid workflow. You can find out more information over at www.insideanalogphoto.com. And of course, Inside Analog Photo is brought to you by Fujifilm, making life more colorful. These guys have the coolest instant photography materials known to mankind. They have, of course, the pack film and 3¼ by 4¼ and 4x5, color and black and white. They have the Instax systems in the wide format, the Instax 210 camera and film, and of course the Instax Mini, both in color film. Beautiful stuff. There's nothing cooler than instant photography. You get a print, because if you don't have a print, you don't have a real photograph. This is great fun stuff. This is great for art. This is great for business. This is cool stuff. You definitely want to check them out over at www.fujifilmusa.com/professional, making life more colorful. Our friends over at DR5 Chrome, black and white, developing that turns your black and white neg into, that's right, black and white chrome. Unbelievable stuff. www.dr5.com. Our official media partner, APUG, the Analog Photography User Group for all things traditional photographic process on the web, www.apug.org, and our official philanthropic partner, George Eastman House International Museum of Photography and Film, over at www.eastmanhouse.org. Today on Inside Analog Photo, we're going to be here with Ryan Muirhead. Ryan is a fabulous photographer based out of Utah. He does beautiful conceptual fine art, fashion, beauty, portraiture. He's got a unique style of his own. And of course, Ryan's going to join us today to talk about himself, what he's been up to, and all this beautiful photography that he's been creating. So without further ado, let's go to Ryan Muirhead. Ryan, how's it going today?
It's going great. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us back here on Inside Analog Photo. Great to have you back on the program to talk about sort of what you're up to. I know you've switched some platforms in regards to what you're shooting that I think is entirely different. And we want to talk about your new fame with Kodak and the new Portra 400 and what you've been doing. This is pretty cool.
Well, it's so great to be back. I love listening, so it's always an honor to be on.
What's been going on since the last time we chatted? I know that you've been testing different camera platforms, and I think you've sort of landed on something that you're digging.
I've really started to narrow it down to what I want to shoot. Something that I love so much about shooting film is all the different camera platforms, because you have to bring such a different approach every time you change, whether you're using like a TLR with a waist level finder, or shooting a rangefinder, or shooting an SLR, or shooting large format. It's so different that it makes you reapproach your message, reapproach your vision, reapproach your subject each time, and I love going through that.
Previously, when we chatted before, you were shooting some 35 millimeter, I think a Contax. I know you had a chance for a while to play with the Mamiya platform. Tell me how this has progressed.
For the medium format, I've definitely kind of settled into loving my Contax 645 as my go-to camera. But in the past year, I've also played pretty extensively with a Mamiya RZ Pro 2. And then in 35 millimeter, I went from shooting a Canon 1V to shooting a Contax G2 to now shooting Leica MP as my primary 35 millimeter body.
So Ryan, tell me your thoughts on the Mamiya RZ system. What did you like about it? What didn't you like? Tell me about your experiences with it so other photographers can take aim from what you've been doing and what your thoughts are.
I think the Mamiya RZ, I have the Pro 2 in particular, is such an awesome option for medium format photography, and the 6.7 negative is just huge. And I really liked the RZ Pro 2 because it was a little bit wider and it had a little bit more control. It could do the half stops and the shutter speed. And the Lee shutter lenses could sync at any shutter speed in the studio. My favorite pairing was with the 110 millimeter 2.8 lens. And at f2.8 on a 6.7 negative, it just had amazingly shallow depth of field.
So what didn't you like about it? Tell me your thoughts on that Mamiya versus a Contax 645.
There's definitely the issue. Like, the Contax operates much more like an SLR. The back have the auto winding, it auto rewinds, auto advances the frame. Whereas on the Mamiya, you're slowed down a little bit. You're cocking the shutter each time. You're winding the film back to advance the film to the proper position. And it's a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier, but the image quality is fantastic. And for how cheap you can get some of those elements, Like some of those prime lenses were going around like $200, and they're just phenomenal lenses.
Yeah, I remember when that stuff was new, and it was not $200; it was $2,000.
Yeah, and it seems there's a lot of cameras left over from kind of studio days that are in just tremendous condition, that never got abused, that were just on tripods, that now you can get an entire RZ Pro 2 kit starting around like $700 or $800, just in fantastic shape.
That is cool. So let's talk about this transition. Let's back up. So if people don't know, Ryan, you shoot your typical genre, what you would call as what, fashion beauty?
Gosh, I guess so. I mean, it's so hard to categorize as it probably is for some people, but I guess fashion, editorial type beauty stuff would be the most accurate genre.
Okay, so typically people that shoot that genre don't shoot rangefinders or Leicas. So tell me about this transition from the 1V, the Canon SLR, to the Contax, and now you have the platform. So why would you leave the 1V and then move in this direction?
I really can't complain about the 1V or the Contax G2 as systems. It's just that I found they were so similar to my Contax 645 that if I wanted a bigger, noisier camera, I should just shoot the Contax and have the bigger negative. That carrying a camera that was the same size and just as noisy to shoot 35mm film, it kind of just stopped making sense. And that's where the transition from the 1V to the Contax G2 came in, because I really liked the size and the small lenses. But that, too, was just too similar. I mean, it was still kind of noisy. The focus obviously isn't precise because you're not seeing the focus. It's just using its autofocus system. And so I decided that the Leica was the kind of 35mm platform that I wanted. But I wanted something discreet. I wanted something quiet. I wanted something unobtrusive, something that I would carry everywhere. And if I was going to get that size of a negative, that I didn't really want the same size of a camera as medium format.
So let's talk about this transition into the Leica. So, of course, you don't see through the lens, you see through what the viewfinder shows you. So how have you found working with the Leica now and what you're shooting? Because you're using the Leica even in a studio environment.
Yeah, I actually just did a really beautiful fashion shoot with an amazing wardrobe designer and makeup artist and hairstylist, where I shot the entire thing on a Leica. And I mean, it definitely has its strengths and weaknesses. I just kind of like playing up the discrete element, that it's never like, okay, we're taking the picture, like the big moment. I kind of like just shooting discreetly, shooting quietly, just moving around, interacting. And sometimes the subject doesn't even know when the shutter has been depressed. And I kind of like just playing off of that, trying to mix it into the shooting style.
Have you found with the Leica being so quiet and being able to zone focus that you've been able to pull shots off that you typically wouldn't get because you catch models off guard?
I won't claim to be an expert. I've only been shooting with it for about 4 months now, but I'm definitely starting to notice those advantages where you can shoot it more in the moment. And even when you do shoot it and you go for the subsequent shot, it's so discreet and so quiet that it doesn't call attention to itself. Like, you can keep shooting and keep that feel going. One of the moments where I absolutely knew wanted to change wasn't actually on a fashion type shoot. I was shooting a memorial service for my roommate's father, who died kind of suddenly. And I was actually still in my Contax G2. And the shoot went really well. But there was a moment when the family had like a prayer together in a hallway, and it was very, very quiet. And I was looking through my G2 at the moment, and I didn't shoot it. And I really, really wanted to. It was such a moment. But the shutter, it would have been too loud. And they knew I was photographing, but obviously they were caught up in what they were doing. And I didn't want to distract from it. And at that moment, I was like, wow, I absolutely had the wrong camera. So a couple days later is when I pulled the trigger on an MP.
So tell me about this. I know that our good friend sent you a Leica to play with. Did you find that having a chance to shoot the Leica system prior than shelling out the greenies to buy it, that made it something even more worthwhile that actually made you seal the deal? Do you think you would have jumped on the Leica system if you had not had a chance to actually play with it first?
Without a doubt, I don't think I would have done it without trying one. I knew I wanted a rangefinder camera, so I started to read into it. I started to read all the comparisons of Voigtlander and just all the different systems, and I arrived at the conclusion, okay, it's really not worth the price increase to do this. Like, I had decided that, and then I kind of posted that on my Facebook page, and Ricci's just said, I'm going to send you my MP, and you'll probably hate me for it. So it arrived, and I mean, it's all those intangibles and everything that I'm sure just listening to me talk about doesn't make sense. But just holding the camera and working with it, it's just, I don't know, it's the intangible. It's so amazingly built, and it just absolutely gets out of your way. Like, with all the SLRs and everything, just the countless menu options, even on like a 1V that's a film camera, just all the custom functions and everything, the Leica doesn't do anything. It has an aperture and a shutter speed, and that's what you get. And it's amazing how when you don't have anything else you can even possibly think about, how much you just concentrate on what you're doing.
Do you find that the metering in the MP is acceptable to what you're looking to do? That you have this latitude with color negative, or are you still 100% manual and hanging a meter around your neck?
I usually have a light meter with me. I won't deny that. But I've actually been using the meter in the MP when I'm just kind of out and about just to test it out, and I've found it to be incredible. I mean, it's not artificially intelligent. It can't think for you. If you're shooting a backlit scene, you're going to need to know to overexpose it. But in a more neutral environment, I've found the meter to be phenomenal.
So let's talk about glass. And you have a unique story about your MP and how you found this thing and where you were actually able to score a deal.
Yeah, I had this MP that Ricci's loaned me, but he booked a wedding sooner than he expected and needed it back. So I just put out a message on my Facebook, and Facebook has been so incredible to me with people who have followed my page and who have helped me do things and find things. So I just put a notice out that said, I am looking for a Leica MP. And probably within 24 hours, a photographer had written me and said, there's a dealer in Memphis, his name's Buzzy, and he has one for a ridiculous price. And so I called them up, and they didn't have pictures of it online or anything, just the owner. And he was such an incredible guy, and I got that within a couple of days.
So let's talk about glass. How much have you invested in glass? Because, I mean, an MP off the shelf, a brand new one, is basically in excess of $4,000 plus.
It is, and that's part of the amazing thing. The one I got was basically in pristine shape, and the bottom, as you know, actually had the plastic on it, like the protective plastic from the factory. I got the body for $2,200.
That's an incredible deal because I actually held that camera, and it's brand new. You scored the deal of the century.
Yeah, so being able to save on the body like that allowed me to, well, I won't say the lens I want most because that's a pretty expensive lens.
You want Noctilux?
I want a 0.95 50mm Noctilux is what I want the most, but that's probably not in the cards anytime soon. But I was able to get a 50mm f2 Summicron, which is just such a beautiful lens, and I had a lot of advice on that. And then I also got a Voigtlander 35mm 1.4. It's not the 35mm lens I would most want, but it's pretty great for the price. But hopefully I'll be able to upgrade that to a Leica lens pretty soon.
So what do you think about that Voigtlander lens? I have the 41.4.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly wouldn't complain, especially for the price. I mean, sometimes the Voigtlander lens was $500 and the Leica 1.4 is $5,000. I mean, 10 times less is certainly something to take into consideration. And for the price, I mean, it's been great. I have a couple of shots I really like that I've taken on it.
I'm just wondering, really, I mean, how much difference is there?
I really can't speak other than reviews I've read. I mean, I've never even shot with the Leica 35 1.4 yet, but I hope to soon.
Yeah, I know that's a favorite lens of people. They say that's the lens, man. That's it.
Yeah, when I was reading up on it, a lot of the consensus people came to is that if money wasn't an option and you had one lens, it would either have to be the 35mm 1.4 or the 50mm 0.95, but that's usually out of the realm of possibility for most people.
Yeah, I think Voigtlander also has, a 51.1? That's supposed to be a pretty good piece of glass, too. But like you said, it's not the same. Even though it might be almost as good, it's just the lure of not the same.
That lure of not the same is so funny because if I had to listen to someone else talking about it, I'd just say, you're so stupid. But they feel just the build quality, and I know that has nothing to do with being a good photographer. And I would not make that assertion that a better lens or a better camera is going to make you any better, but it does feel amazing, and it's kind of hard to deny.
Well, no, I mean, holding the Leica in your hand, the heft that it's made out of brass and the cloth shutter and all these things combined and the way that it's got this fine human engineering, it's pretty cool. There is a difference.
It definitely made me understand it. Like, for years I've read about people with their Leicas, and you just think, man, you're so stupid. But then you hold it and you go, oh, it is amazing.
So your platforms now are Leica or Contax 645.
I still have my Mamiya RZ Pro 2, and I still have a bunch of Polaroid cameras and stuff like that. But aside from some of the cost-prohibitive factors, I would love to make the Leica just my everyday camera.
So are you like Jay Maisel now? Do you not leave the building without your Leica?
That was another really important factor to me, is that I was already at the I won't leave the house without a camera point. And most of the time it was just my contacts, and it was just ridiculous, but I still wasn't going to leave without a camera. I know some people who are I don't take my camera on vacation, I don't shoot when I'm not getting paid. But, I could never do that. I feel so much compulsion just to shoot all the time. But I wanted the camera where I was going to take it everywhere, and it wasn't going to kill me to do it. So I have been taking my MP almost everywhere I go.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So let's talk about film. You were in a testing program when Kodak redid the Portrait 400. And I believe that Kodak has graciously shown off some really cool images that you've been shooting, and you've got some great notoriety off this Kodak gig. It's pretty cool.
It's nothing that I've done. I just feel so lucky. Kodak and Scott have been so kind to me in sending the films to test and then using the images. It's really just kind of blown me away.
Well, if the images weren't there, they wouldn't be using them.
Yeah. I'm definitely proud of the work. It's just a little bit overwhelming. And when I got the film to do the test, I was thinking, oh man, I've got to make this so much bigger than what I do. This has got to be so much better and so much different. And then I just kind of realized that if I tried to do that, it wasn't going to succeed, that I just had to do what I normally do to the best of my ability. So we shot both of the ads, both the Portrait 400 and the Kodak 160 ads, just on my back porch in natural light with no reflectors and no artificial lighting. We just kind of shot on the porch.
I think that there's a new web-based photographic program called Frame, and they actually shot you shooting what you were shooting for the Portrait 160 gig.
Yeah, the people from Framed, who are kind of a web-based photography show, they just showcase different photographers. It just worked out so perfectly that I got the Portrait 160 to test right when they asked if they could come film. So they actually filmed everything about it, from the makeup styling to the setup to how I was metering to where we were shooting. So if you go to the Frame Show website, you can actually see from start to finish how I shot the Kodak 160 images and what they look like at the end. And something I love so much about the new Portrait films is how well they scan with so little adjustment that I actually made it a point that I did not open the 160 images for that shoot in Photoshop. I did some slight Lightroom edits, and I did some sorting and a little bit of black adjustment, but that was it. None of the pictures were ever opened in Photoshop.
That's pretty cool to be able to pull that in. Now, Ryan, tell me about how you like to shoot Portrait 400. Do you find that you can shoot it from what to what? Do you ever have it pushed? Tell me what you're doing with the film.
I've had some amazing results from the Portrait 400, and I assume I'll be having some more amazing results from the 160 as soon as I start shooting that more. With the Portrait 400, when we very first got it, all I had been shooting was the Fuji 400H, which is beautiful, but as you probably know, to get the best look out of that, you're kind of like 2 stops overexposing it in even light. So it's kind of bringing it down to like an ISO 100 effective film. So when I got the Portrait 400, I was like, well, that's how you shoot 400 speed color negative film. So we shot the shoot like that, and it came back, it was still beautiful, but it kind of started leaning yellow, and I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. So we just kind of corrected it and used it, but then as I started shooting it more and more, and I had more to experiment with, I started shooting it like at the box speed, and then underexposing it by 1 stop, and then underexposing it by 2 stops, and then underexposing it by 2 stops, and shooting it just in tungsten light. And I was just absolutely amazed at the result. I started off working on motion pictures with how I got my start in photography. And the director of photography, almost everything shot on Kodak film. And they used the Kodak motion picture film, which has this Vision 3 technology, which just enables it to be manipulated and shot under different lighting conditions so well. And I always kind of wondered, why isn't this in the negative film for still shooters? And then once it was, it just kind of opened a floodgate of possibilities.
So what range do you find that you like to shoot this film without having any alternate development? So any plus or minus, push or pull. What do you like to shoot it at standard development? What can you get away with?
At standard development, I shoot it right at 400. Just if I was manually metering, just the bulb out, just kind of metering it like it was their face. But one of my favorite shots I've done on it so far was actually rating the film at 1600 and developing it at 400, which means effectively I underexposed the film by 2 stops. And we also shot it under tungsten light. And I mean, it definitely has a different look to it than exposed correctly. But as opposed to just ruined, it kind of just took on that like 70s art house feel. Not muddy, but just kind of soft and subdued. And it still looked beautiful, and it was just a different look. So I appreciated so much being able to add another look kind of to the repertoire or to the possibilities instead of just that overexposed color negative and then change it up a little bit. It was literally a completely different look.
Have you experimented with pushing it at all in development?
I have. During this shoot I was referencing, actually, I rated everything at 1600. And a few of them, I pushed it 2 stops to 1600, and it just looked beautiful. I mean, it didn't have color shifts. It didn't have very much increased grain. And I have both of these shots up on my website, the one that was pushed to 1600 and the one that was just underexposed 2 stops, and they both just look beautiful.
Pretty amazing that you can have, basically one roll of film and you can shoot it from ISO 100 or even lower all the way to 1600 plus and just have one tube.
Yeah, I mean, it's so amazing like that. And I guess that would be a great film for beginners because it would be pretty hard to screw up.
Very, very true. So tell me your thoughts on the Portra 160. It seems to me from what I've seen that it almost renders skin tones better than Portra 400.
I would say that's true. And I don't want to claim to have more experience than I do. I've just done 2 or 3 pretty decent-sized shoots with the 160. But the skin tones that have come back have just been phenomenal. I would say even better than the Portra 400, and it's also finer grained. And it did a little bit of the underexposure. It has that same Vision 3 technology.
Pretty cool time to be shooting film.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to coupling the Portra 160 in 35mm with the Leica MP. Since you can shoot it at such slower shutter speeds, I'm looking forward to using a slower speed film in the Leica.
What have you found that you can get away with now with the Leica?
I've definitely had excellent results in 1/8 of a second, a 1/4 of a second. And I've been talking through with friends who shoot them who say they have handheld shots at a second that are sharp, which is just amazing.
Pretty interesting stuff. Quite cool. So what do you look forward to moving forward? So it looks like you've pretty much narrowed down your platform on shooting. What do you think?
I'm at a really transitional time. I'm in my last semester of college right now. I'm finishing up my degree in photography at Utah Valley University. And I've just had all this great stuff happen with Kodak. So right now I'm actually looking into getting represented by an agency to start shooting more commercial work. And it's just time for me to move on to the next phase of shooting.
So what are you looking forward to? Is it time to blow Utah and go to New York?
I don't know. I'd be willing. I love living here, but at the end of this, it's time to move. I'm totally okay with that. So I guess I'll kind of just take that as it comes. If I have an opportunity to move and work, I will do it.
And do you like the direction that you've been going? Do you want to change things? Tell me about your thoughts on what you're shooting and what your style. Is it evolving or is it still what it's been and it's going to stay that way?
It's definitely still evolving. The addition of the rangefinder shooting kind of got me looking into the street style and Leica shooters. And I hadn't really explored that aspect of it very much, but I'm really looking forward to doing a couple more documentary projects and then mixing that style of shooting into the editorial fashion stuff. So I think it's definitely still evolving, and I hope it always will.
I think that it's fabulous, and I think people have really been moved by your work.
That makes me feel so grateful to have the people to share it with. People's response has really been incredible in keeping me going.
Ryan, let's talk about post-production. So now that you've shot this film, and I know you're shooting all kinds of cool stuff. You're shooting 400CN, Portra. Film is yummy. It doesn't matter who makes it. It's good stuff. Where do you do with it? Where does it go? Does it go to Walgreens? What do you do with the film after you shot it?
I've definitely experimented with sending stuff to Walgreens, doing it myself, just anything I can. But anything that matters and for the best possible result, I just like sending it to lab. And there's such an artistry with film to the post-production and to the development, to the scanning, to the printing, to whatever it is. And I'm starting to realize that I don't want to be a master at that. I don't have a particular love of my own developing or my own scanning. Some people do, and I wouldn't fault them for that at all. But I love just trying to concentrate so much on the physical aspect of shooting and that moment. And I love just sending it away to someone who's far more skilled than I am at development and scanning and just getting those amazing results back. Not having much to do at the end of shooting is exactly where I want to be.
Do you find that the additional cost with working with a pro lab has benefits over cost savings if you were doing it yourself or taking it to some big box store to have them crank it out?
It has a number of benefits, and I wouldn't be the person to tell someone you have to do this. There's always solutions. But just to get the scans back with such incredible color, not from a college student working at Walgreens or whoever it is, but just to get it back from an artist and to get their scans so there's no dust on them, and it just looks phenomenal. And if there's anything that you would have done differently, the customer service is so impeccable just to get where you want to be. And the value of not having to do any of that yourself is different to every person, but to me it's just huge.
Do you like to have your stuff scanned on the Noritsu or the Fuji scanner?
I'm such a Fuji Frontier man. The Noritsu's not bad, and I've had some great results from it, but the Fuji Frontier just kind of has that look all its own. And I've also found it's very, very difficult to blow a highlight on color negative film using the Fuji Frontier, and I love that.
So, Ryan, let's send them someplace to look at your work, to see what you're doing. Let's talk about where. Where's the website? Where's your blog? Where do they go look at all this cool stuff?
Kind of the central hub for everything I'm doing has ended up being Facebook. It would probably be a little bit better if I moved it to something I had a little bit more control over, but there's just so many people that are active there. Just in a 30-day period, my Facebook page had 1.2 million views, which never happened with a website or a blog or anything. I have all of those, but I've just found the traffic on Facebook to be so incredible where people can stay interactive without navigating away from what they're doing. So my Facebook page is just facebook.com/Ryan Muirhead Photography. And as anyone I know can tell you, I'm on there a lot. I post work on there a lot. If anybody's a friend, answer any questions I can. So that's generally the best place for updates.
This is great work, Ryan. I really appreciate you joining us again on the program. We always look forward to having you back. This is fabulous photography. I think it's very inspirational. It's great to see you grasp a hold of this Leica system and do this really cool editorial fashion, these beautiful images you're making with a Leica system that most people wouldn't think of using, but it works great. And the photos just go to show that with your skill set and inspiration and passion for photography, it really doesn't matter what you're using as long as you're taking pictures. It's pretty neat.
It's so true, and I'm so grateful to be on it. It's so fun to listen to other film shooters and just kind of share the passion. It's such an honor to be on and talk about it.
Yeah, and I do appreciate it, buddy. We look forward to having you back, and I think people should go to Facebook and find you, go to your website. This is great work, and again, thanks so much.
Okay, thank you.
Well, there you go. Ryan Muirhead, a fabulous photographer, beautiful work. He's embraced the Leica system. He's got a lot of cool stuff going on. Definitely check out Ryan's work. He's a fabulous photographer, and an all-around great guy. The Inside Analog Photo radio program has been brought to you by Fujifilm for their full line of instant cameras and film, and of course, fine quality Fuji Crystal Archive paper over at www.fujifilmusa.com/professional. Our friends over at DR5 for black and white chrome at dr5.com. And of course, our media partners of the Analog Photography User Group at apug.org, and our official philanthropic partner, George Eastman House, over at eastmanhouse.org. I've been your host, Scott Shippert, here on Inside Analog Photo. We'll be back next week with more great analog photography.